Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today I'm going to show you a rather unique game by the name of Pueblo. This is an abstract strategy game where players are going to be playing Native American architects who are going to be trying to construct a tower. Each architect will have preferred colors in building the village, but the chieftain is going to move around the village just trying to make sure that the players aren't putting themselves forward too much. So the players are going to be trying to smuggle their colors into a shared structure that all the players are going to be building, and the player who does that most successfully will win. This is a game that plays about, I'd say about 45 minutes to an hour for 2 to 4 players. It's designed by Wolfgang, Kramer, and Kiesling for ages 10 and up. I think I'll take a moment to show you the game in action, and then I'll come back and give you my thoughts on it. So here we see what might be the setup for a 3-player game of Pueblo. There's going to be a game board where players are going to be placing these block pieces. It's an 8x8 grid with a border around it, among which this chieftain will travel each turn, evaluating the building progress of the players. And then beyond that, each player is going to get a set of blocks in their color. So they will get 6 blocks of their colors and 5 neutral blocks in the 3 players. So that's going to vary by game. Also, there's going to be a scoring track where each player will get a player marker as well. At the start of the game, players will arrange their blocks so they have one of their color blocks in a color, or in a space by itself, and then they arrange one of their blocks with one of the neutral blocks into a cube, and they just pair them like that on the table. So all these blocks are going to be the same shape. It's basically this L shape with an extra bump on it. And so the way the game plays is that players are going to be wanting to construct this tower. So as the chieftain moves around, he's not able to view any of his blocks, or any of the players' blocks. So the way that's going to work is the first time that you build, you're going to have to build a block of your own color. So let's say this player places it here, and then you're going to be required to move the chieftain up to 4 spaces. So this player might move it 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what happens is, and it helps if I rotate it perhaps, is that the chieftain will look in a straight line from where they're standing, and if they see any player's blocks, basically non-neutral blocks, for every square of that player's block, they're going to score a negative point, a penalty point. And in this game, you don't want to score points. So that might be this player's turn. Then this player will have to place a block. So they might try to perhaps hide behind the red player, do something like that. And then they just might move the chieftain 1. He would again view this way, see nothing. And so this will go on with players essentially placing their blocks and then moving the chieftain. So it's just those 2 actions over and over. So let's say the blue player places back here so that he's hidden, and he might move the chieftain 4 spaces. Whenever the chieftain lands on a corner space, what he'll do is, instead of looking straight in a line, he'll actually observe the whole quadrant from the top. So essentially you'll look here how many cubes of different colors you see, and for each cube that's not neutral, the player will score negative points. And in that case, the players would receive 1 negative point regardless of the height of the block. So for example, if blue had placed over here, and then the piece had moved to this space, looking top down, we would see, so it would be like this, we would see 1, 2, 3 blocks, and the blue player, or the aqua player, would get 3 points. And again, points are bad. So let's just move on. And so let's say the red plays now. And so once you have your second placement, you have the option to either play your block of your color or the neutral block. So you could play either of those, but once you play the first one, your next play will have to be the other one that you don't play. So these always play out in pairs, and then you can move on to the next pair. So let's say the red player just is worried about this or something. This would be a terrible move, but let's say they do this, and then they move the chieftain 4 spaces, and Then we can rotate this around. And now, as you can see, when the chieftain looks down here, he's going to see an aqua block on level 1. So the aqua player will get 1 negative point. And then he'll see also a red block on level 2. So red player will get 2 penalty points. So they're each going to score here. And you score 1 point for each level that the block that is seen is on. So if, let's just say, the chieftain didn't move, or he came back around and something like this happened, now he would only see the teal and the dark blue. I guess it must be turquoise if this is Pueblo to be thematic. So this guy would score 1 point and this player would score 2 points. Red being blocked, he can't be seen from this direction, would not score anything. So that's essentially how the game's going to work, with players taking turns placing blocks, hopefully using these neutral blocks to block out their own color. So here, for example, if this is what happened, now blue would not score any points because they've used a neutral block to block their line of vision. Although, of course, from this side, they can be seen. So you're essentially going to be racing ahead of the chieftain, trying to place blocks to cover up any gaps as they fill up. And however, over the course of the game, this is going to get filled up, so it's going to be increasingly hard to place blocks. Obviously, any block that you place of your color that is going to be on the end will score points. So this would be bad because it would definitely score here. There's no way that anything could block the vision of this, as with this and this. One rule when placing these blocks is that, although they could be placed anywhere in this 8x8 grid, they don't have to be adjacent to other blocks. They cannot be placed so that there is a piece of the block hanging over empty space. They always have to be touching on at least 3 sides. So this will go on in a number of rounds, essentially until all players have played all the blocks in front of them. And then at that point, the end game scoring will happen. What you'll do is you'll essentially evaluate every space on the block, or on the whole board. So the chieftain would look here, score points, and you'll place this so you remember where he went. He'll go to this space, people will score points, this space, this space, this space, the corner, score the corner, and so on, until he makes his way all the way back around. At that point, whoever has the fewest points is going to win. There are some variants with the game. There is a demolition variant where after you play the game, you could basically do the same thing but in reverse, where on your turn you can then remove a block of your color or a neutral block and then move the chieftain and then score. And those scores would be cumulative with the first half of the game, so it's essentially a twice as long game but a building and unbuilding. There's also an advanced variant where at the beginning of the game players will place these tiles, which represent sacred burial sites, and those will be placed on the board, up to 4 of those, and no block could ever be placed on top of those. So it just makes building more challenging. In that variant, players will also auction for turn order at critical times during the game. So that's another consideration. So in general, that is how you would play Pueblo. Alright, so that is Pueblo, and I think you could see that this is a very unique game. There are other games that use these sorts of blocks, but there's few in which players are going to be collectively building a structure where it's not going to be, a dexterity game, where it's going to be really more of a strategy game and players are going to be competing for points. I can think of some others, such as the Climbers is a game that's along the same lines, but this one still feels very unique. Just these strategies that are pretty obvious are the goals. You just want to make sure that your pieces aren't seen by the roving chieftain as he moves around the board. But how to go about that is going to be very tricky, especially because of that mechanism where you're going to have to play blocks in pairs. You're going to be forced to play your block every other turn, and that makes it tricky. Especially since other players largely are going to be the ones who have control over moving that piece to initiate the scorings. You could be sure that they'll initiate a scoring that will penalize you if it's possible. So this game, it's something that I've played with a lot of players, and I've seen people make bad decisions early on the first time they play it, and then realize that about 3 turns later. It's just one of those games where, although, from a rules explanation, the strategy might not be immediately apparent, it quickly does become apparent. For example, placing a piece along the outside is just going to be guaranteeing your points. There might be times when, that's somewhat advisable. For example, if it's blocking another piece, it's, net sum of 0. And if you're placing a piece on the ground level for 0 points, as opposed to placing an exposed piece higher up, which will happen over the course of the game, that might be a good move. But ultimately, you want to just stay as hidden as possible. And I think that the game, it's something that is unique. Whenever I play it on the Lazy Susan, just so it's easier for players to see it from all sides. The board, being able to rotate the board does help. You do have to have that sort of spatial awareness, and I realize not all game players are equally adept at that, so that's something to take into consideration. But if you like puzzles, and if you like, trying to, manipulate the board that other people are sharing so that you're going to come out ahead, this is a great game for you, I think. It is out of print currently. It was published in America by Ravensburger. There are used copies available on the market. I'm not sure, I haven't heard anything about reprinting, but it's one that certainly deserves to be back in print. So I guess I'll leave it there. Those are my thoughts on Pueblo, and thank you for watching.